I always thought my life was stable. Not perfect, but solid. I had a wife I loved, a career that kept us comfortable, and a home filled with years of memories. My name is Daniel, and for the past 12 years, I've been married to Olivia. We met in college, dated through our 20s, and built what I thought was an unshakable foundation. We had our routines: coffee together in the mornings, dinner at the table most nights, a movie on Fridays. We weren't the overly affectionate type, but I never doubted the bond we had. Even when work kept her late, even when she went on her occasional girls' trips, I trusted her. But looking back, I wonder when the first crack appeared. Maybe it was the change in her perfume. She'd always worn something light, floral, the kind that lingered softly in the air. One day, out of nowhere, she switched to something heavier, muskier. I complimented her on it, and she just shrugged. Felt like a change, she said. Or maybe it was how she started carrying her phone everywhere. Olivia used to leave it on the kitchen counter without a second thought. Now, it was always in her pocket or face down on the table. Work's been crazy, she explained when I joked about how she was glued to it. Still, I ignored it. Then, there was the night she came home late. She had gone out for drinks with coworkers, a pretty normal thing for her job, but when I called at 10:30, she didn't answer. At midnight, she waltzed in, a little tipsy but not drunk. "Why didn't you pick up?" I asked. She yawned, kicking off her heels. "Oh, my phone died." "Sorry, babe." Something in my gut twisted, but I smiled. "No worries." I wish I had worried. It wasn't just one night. Over the next few weeks, she started leaving earlier for work and coming home later. Some mornings, I'd wake up and find her side of the bed empty. "Just had trouble sleeping," she'd say, already dressed, sipping her coffee as if nothing was unusual. Then came the calls. 3 times in 1 month, I answered our landline, only to hear someone hang up the moment I said hello. Olivia laughed when I mentioned it. Probably telemarketers. Maybe. But then there was the missing necklace. She had this silver pendant I bought her for our anniversary a few years ago. She wore it every day, always said it was her favorite. One morning, I noticed it wasn't around her neck. "Forgot to put it on," she said without looking up from her phone. I let it go, but that night, while she was in the shower, I checked her jewelry box. It wasn't there. Where the hell was it? I told myself I was overthinking things. That I was just being paranoid. That there was no reason to doubt Olivia after 12 years together. I should have listened to my gut. Because in a matter of days, my entire world was about to come crashing down. I always believed that when betrayal comes, you'd feel it in your bones. That there would be some unmistakable moment, a sign so clear that you couldn't ignore it. But that's not how it happens. It creeps in slowly, like a shadow stretching across the floor at sunset. You don't notice it until the room is already dark. It started with the necklace. I couldn't stop thinking about it, where it was, why she wasn't wearing it, why she lied. I told myself it was nothing, but my mind wouldn't let it go. So, 2 nights later, when Olivia was asleep, I checked again. Her jewelry box, her nightstand, the bathroom counter. Nothing. Then I searched her purse. I hesitated before opening it. We weren't the kind of couple who snooped. At least, I hadn't been. But something wasn't right, and I needed answers. Inside, I found her wallet, some receipts, a tube of lipstick, and a hotel key card. I just stood there, staring at it. My first thought was denial. Maybe she picked it up by accident. Maybe a friend had asked her to hold on to it. Maybe. No. I turned it over in my hands. Westview Hotel was printed in sleek black letters on the front. It was one of those upscale places downtown, the kind we'd only stayed in once for an anniversary. My stomach twisted. I had 2 choices: wake her up and demand an explanation or find out the truth myself. I chose the second. The first clue. The next morning, Olivia left early for work, kissing me on the cheek like nothing had changed. I watched her go, waiting for her car to disappear down the street before I grabbed my keys and drove straight to the Westview Hotel. The lobby smelled like polished wood and expensive cologne. A receptionist greeted me with a professional smile, and for a second, I felt ridiculous. What was I even going to ask? I pulled out my phone, pretending to check a text. Hey, quick question. My wife and I stayed here a couple of weeks ago, and I think we left something in our room. Any chance you could check? The woman nodded. Of course. What was the room number? Shit. I had no idea. I forced a chuckle. That's the problem, I don't remember. It was under Olivia Marshall. She frowned and started typing. A few seconds later, she looked up. I'm sorry, but I don't see an Olivia Marshall in our system. I felt my pulse quicken. Could you try Daniel Marshall? Maybe she booked it under my name. More typing. Then she shook her head. I'm sorry, sir. I should have left it at that. Should have just walked away. Instead, I pulled out the key card. Look, I found this in my wife's purse. She must have stayed here. Maybe she used a different name? The receptionist's expression changed, guarded now, cautious. Sir, I can't give out guest information. That told me everything I needed to know. I forced a smile. Right. No problem. Thanks for checking. I walked out of that hotel with a pit in my stomach, knowing that my wife had lied. Now, I just had to figure out who she was lying with. The evidence. That night, Olivia was distant. She scrolled on her phone while we ate dinner, nodding along as I talked about my day but barely responding. I watched her, studying every little detail, the way she kept glancing at her screen, the way she smirked at whatever was on it, the way she angled it slightly away from me. And then it hit me. Her phone. That was where the answers were. For the first time in our marriage, I decided to invade her privacy. I waited until she was asleep, breathing slow and steady beside me. Then, with my heart pounding, I carefully reached over and took her phone from the nightstand. The screen was locked. Of course it was. But I knew her passcode, our wedding anniversary. It didn't work. My stomach dropped. She had changed it. When? Why? I sat there, staring at the screen, my mind racing. I needed another way. Then I remembered something, her laptop. She always left it open in the office. I moved quietly through the house, my hands shaking as I powered it on. Her email was already logged in. And that's when I saw it. A confirmation email from the Westview Hotel. One night stay. Room 428. Paid for with a credit card I didn't recognize. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the name under the reservation. Mr. and Mrs. David Carter. David Carter. I knew that name. He wasn't some random guy. He was Olivia's boss. The breaking point. I don't remember much after that. I just sat there, staring at the screen, my hands numb. It felt like my entire world had been ripped apart in a matter of seconds. All the little moments, the late nights, the secrecy, the necklace, it all made sense now. She wasn't just cheating. She was cheating with someone I had met. Someone she had talked about over dinner. Someone who had shaken my hand at a company party. I wanted to be sick. I forced myself to keep reading, searching through her emails, her messages, anything I could find. And the more I found, the worse it got. Flirty emails. Dinner reservations. Weekend trips disguised as work events. Months of lies. I don't know how long I sat there before I heard Olivia's voice behind me. Daniel? I turned slowly, and for the first time in my life, I saw real fear in her eyes. She looked at her laptop, then at me, then back again. What are you doing? My mouth was dry. I could barely force the words out. Who is David Carter to you? She froze. Her face drained of color. And that was when I knew. She wasn't going to lie her way out of this. She had been caught. I had imagined 1,000 different ways this could go. Maybe she'd deny everything, spin some desperate lie about why she was using a fake name at a hotel. Maybe she'd break down and confess everything at once, begging me not to leave. Maybe she'd try to turn it around on me, claim I was being paranoid, accuse me of violating her privacy. But Olivia just stood there, frozen, staring at me like I was a ghost. I could see the wheels turning in her head, trying to calculate how much I knew, what she could still salvage. That hesitation alone told me everything. I turned the laptop toward her, the email from the Westview Hotel glowing on the screen. My voice was eerily calm when I spoke. "Who is David Carter to you?" She blinked rapidly, her throat bobbing as she swallowed hard. "Daniel, I slammed the laptop shut. "Don't." Her mouth snapped shut. For a long moment, we just stood there, the air between us heavy with something toxic. The weight of 12 years together, of the home we built, of every late-night whisper and inside joke, crushed down on me. Finally, she exhaled shakily. "Let's just sit down. Please." I didn't move. "Answer the question." She bit her lip, looking at the floor. "David is my boss." I let out a hollow laugh. "I know that, Olivia. Try again." Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Try. Again." Her shoulders sagged, and I saw the exact moment she realized she couldn't spin this. She swallowed again, then met my eyes. "I made a mistake." The words hit me like a gut punch. A mistake. As if she had tripped and fallen into another man's bed. As if it were a miscalculation, a slip of the tongue, something as simple as spilling coffee on a shirt. I clenched my jaw. "How long?" She hesitated. "How long?" She looked away. "A few months." I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. "Months. Months, Olivia." I started pacing, hands on my hips, trying to keep myself from putting a hole in the wall. The rage was building now, clawing up my throat, demanding release. I turned back to her. "You were never going to tell me, were you?" Her silence was my answer. "So what was the plan?" I snapped. "Keep lying to me forever? Just go back and forth between him and me like nothing's happening?" Tears welled in her eyes. "It wasn't like that." I scoffed. "Really? Because it looks exactly like that." She stepped forward, reaching for me. "Daniel, I took a step back. "Don't touch me." Her hands fell to her sides. For a moment, the only sound in the room was our breathing. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, I asked the question I was most afraid of. "Do you love him?" Her lips parted, and my stomach twisted violently. She didn't say no. She didn't say anything. I laughed bitterly. "Jesus Christ, Olivia." She wiped at her face. "I don't know what you want me to say." "The truth, for once." She let out a sob, shaking her head. "I don't love him. It was never supposed to happen like this." I was so sick of hearing that line. Like she had no control over it. Like it was some force of nature instead of a deliberate betrayal. I rubbed a hand over my face, trying to think through the haze of anger clouding my brain. I had to stay focused. Had to push through the devastation. "Are you still seeing him?" I asked. She hesitated. "Jesus Christ, Olivia, just answer the goddamn question." She winced. I told him it had to stop." I let out another humorless laugh. "When?" "Last week." I stared at her. "Last week." She nodded. "I knew it was wrong. I knew I was hurting you. I wanted to stop. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But there was one problem. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the screenshots I had taken from her laptop. Texts, emails, confirmations. I turned the screen toward her. You had another hotel reservation booked for this weekend. Her face went deathly pale. The room was silent. I waited for her to say something, anything that would make this less horrific. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Looked away. I felt something inside me snap. Right, I said flatly, pocketing my phone. I'm done. Her head jerked up. Daniel. I'm done, I repeated, turning away. She lunged for me, grabbing my arm. Please. Just talk to me. I yanked free. We are talking. And I'm telling you that I'm done. She blocked my path. Don't do this. We can fix it. I laughed in her face. Fix it? Olivia, I don't want to fix it. You broke it. Her lip trembled. I love you. I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness. Just exhaustion. I stepped around her and headed for the door. Pack your bags, I said over my shoulder. I want you out by tomorrow. She gasped. Daniel. I don't care where you go, I cut in. But you don't live here anymore. She started crying. I have nowhere to go. I shrugged. Go to David's. Her sob turned into a strangled noise. I didn't look back. I walked out of the room, out of the house, out into the cold night air. My heart pounded in my chest, my hands clenched into fists. This was it. This was the moment where everything changed. I had always wondered how I'd react if something like this ever happened. Now I knew. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into forgiving something unforgivable. I was going to make sure she regretted every single second of it. I drove aimlessly for almost an hour after walking out. The weight of everything pressed down on me, suffocating and relentless. I had just ended a 12-year marriage in a single night. No drawn-out fights, no second chances, just a hard, brutal exit. And yet, I felt nothing. No relief. No satisfaction. No righteous fury. Just numbness. I pulled into an empty parking lot behind a 24-hour gas station and sat there in silence. My fingers gripped the steering wheel so tightly they ached. My mind was still stuck in the house, still replaying the moment Olivia hesitated to answer whether she loved him. That hesitation had destroyed everything. I let out a slow, shaky breath, staring at the darkened gas station sign. What now? I could call a lawyer first thing in the morning. Start the process of making this split official. That was the logical move. The smart move. But was that enough? She had ripped my life apart. Lied to my face for months. And I was just going to walk away? A voice in the back of my mind whispered, "Make her pay." The thought sent a cold thrill through me. I had always been the kind of guy who handled things the mature way, talked things out, compromised, avoided unnecessary conflict. But for the first time in my life, I wanted to hurt someone the way they had hurt me. Not physically. But I wanted her to feel this. I wanted her to lose everything. Step 1: Exposing the truth. At 3 a.m., I drove back home. I didn't go inside. Olivia was probably still awake, crying, calling friends, trying to figure out her next move. I wasn't ready to face her again. Instead, I parked a few houses down and pulled out my phone. I still had the screenshots from her emails. The hotel reservations, the text messages, the proof of her affair. If I wanted to, I could send them right now to her family, our mutual friends, even her co-workers. Let everyone see exactly who she was. I hovered my finger over the screen, hesitating. Then I thought of David Carter. That smug bastard. Her boss. The man who shook my hand at company events while sleeping with my wife behind my back. He had a wife. A pregnant wife. Olivia had mentioned it once in passing. David's wife, Emily, was due in a couple of months. I had never met her, but I knew one thing for certain: she had no idea her husband was cheating on her. That could change. I found Emily Carter on social media easily. Her profile was public: photos of her growing belly, baby shower pictures, posts about how excited she was to meet their child. I stared at her latest post, a picture of her and David together with the caption, "Counting down the days until our little one arrives. Love you, babe." I clenched my jaw. I clicked the message button and typed 2 words. "Check your husband's emails." Then I attached the proof, the hotel confirmations, the flirty messages, the receipts. I hesitated one last time. Then I hit send. Step 2: destroying her reputation. I wasn't done. I opened my contacts and scrolled until I found Mark, Olivia's supervisor at work. I had no idea if Olivia's company had strict policies against interoffice relationships, but I knew one thing: Mark hated David Carter. Olivia had vented about office politics enough times for me to pick up on it. I sent him the same screenshots, along with a short message. "Not sure if this is allowed at your company, but figured you should know your employees are using company time and resources for this." I hit send. Step 3: taking away her security. I waited in my car until the sun came up. Then, at 8 a.m., I made a call. "Hey, Steve. I need a favor." Steve was my lawyer. Well, technically, he was a divorce lawyer who specialized in high-conflict cases. He was also my old college roommate and had seen me through every major event in my life. I laid it out for him: Olivia's affair, the evidence I had, the fact that I wanted her out of my life immediately. Steve listened quietly, then sighed. "Do you want to play this clean, or do you want to ruin her?" I didn't hesitate. "I want to ruin her." He let out a low whistle. "All right. We can go the nuclear route. Do you have access to the finances?" "Yes." "Then here's what you do." Step 4: freezing her out. By the time I walked into the house later that morning, Olivia was in the kitchen, sitting at the table. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were swollen, her hair was a mess, and a half-empty bottle of wine sat beside her. She looked up when I walked in. "Daniel." I held up a hand. "I'm not here to talk." She swallowed. "Where were you?" "None of your business." Her face crumpled. "I'm sorry." I ignored her. Walked past her to the bedroom. Grabbed some of my clothes and shoved them into a duffel bag. "Where are you going?" she asked desperately. "To a hotel." She stood up quickly. "Please, Daniel. We can work through this. I love you. I made a mistake." I let out a harsh laugh. "You didn't just make a mistake. You made a series of deliberate choices, 4 months." She stepped closer, reaching for my arm. "Please. Just talk to me." I met her eyes. "Check your phone." Confusion flickered across her face. Then she grabbed her phone off the counter and unlocked it. Her eyes widened as the notifications flooded in. First, a dozen missed calls from David Carter. Then, frantic texts from her coworkers. Then, a message from her mother: "Olivia, what the hell is going on?" Her breath hitched. "Daniel, what did you do?" I zipped up my duffel bag. "What needed to be done?" Her hands shook as she scrolled through her phone. I knew exactly what she was seeing. Her entire world was collapsing in real time. "Daniel," she whispered. "You sent this to Emily?" I stared at her. "You didn't care about her when you were screwing her husband. Why do you care now?" Tears streamed down her face. "You sent this to my boss?" "Yeah." I slung the duffel over my shoulder. "Have fun at work on Monday." Her knees buckled, and she collapsed onto the chair, her face buried in her hands. "Oh my God." I walked toward the door. Stopped. Looked back one last time. You said you didn't know if you loved him, I said coldly. I hope he was worth it. Because you just lost everything for him. Then I walked out. And I never looked back. I left Olivia behind, but the weight of what I had done followed me like a shadow. For the first time in my life, I had gone scorched earth. No second chances, no discussion. I had exposed her, humiliated her, ripped the rug out from under her feet, and I didn't feel an ounce of regret. If anything, I felt calm. I checked into a hotel a few miles from our house. The front desk clerk gave me a polite smile as she handed me the key, probably assuming I was just another business traveler. If only she knew the truth. If only she knew that the man standing before her had just obliterated his marriage in less than 12 hours. The room was decent. Beige walls, a small TV mounted to the wall, a bed that was too neatly made. It smelled like cheap cleaning supplies and forgotten dreams. I threw my duffel on the chair, sat on the bed, and just existed. For the first time in years, I was completely alone. No Olivia. No lies. Just me. I pulled out my phone and checked my messages. There were several missed calls from her. A few from her mother, too. I ignored them all. Instead, I texted Steve. Me, done. She knows everything. Steve, and? Me, she fell apart. Steve, good. I stared at the screen for a long moment before setting the phone down. I should have felt more. Anger. Sorrow. Relief. Something. But I didn't. I felt nothing. The fallout begins. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. I had barely stepped out of the shower when my phone started blowing up. Mark, Olivia's supervisor, had texted me. Mark, holy shit. What did you do? Me, what happened? Mark, David got fired. I froze. Me, already? Mark, apparently his wife stormed into the office this morning, waving printouts of emails and hotel reservations. HR got involved. The higher-ups freaked out. He's done. I let out a slow breath. David Carter had officially lost everything. And Olivia? I didn't even have to ask. Mark, she's in full meltdown mode. Crying in the office, locked herself in a conference room. No one knows what to say to her. Good. I wanted her to feel it. The fear, the humiliation, the suffocating realization that her actions had consequences. I wanted her to understand what she had thrown away. But I wasn't done yet. Her last desperate attempt. That afternoon, I got a call. I almost didn't answer. But something inside me told me to pick up. Daniel, Olivia's voice was shaky, desperate. Please talk to me. I took a deep breath. I have nothing left to say to you. You ruined my life. I laughed, the sound bitter. No, Olivia. You ruined your life. I just made sure everyone saw it. Silence. Then, I lost my job. I wasn't surprised. HR doesn't tolerate workplace affairs, especially when they go public. I have nothing now, she whispered. Nothing. That's not my problem. Her breath hitched. Do you really hate me that much? I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. No, I said honestly. I don't hate you, Olivia. A shaky exhale. Then. I just don't care about you anymore. I could almost hear her heart breaking through the phone. She sniffled. I made a mistake. You made a choice. Daniel, please. Did you ever think about me? I cut in. Did you ever stop, in those hotel rooms, in his car, in his bed, did you ever stop and think, what if Daniel finds out? What if this destroys him? Silence. Did you ever think about what this would do to me? I asked, my voice eerily calm. No. There it was. The truth. She had never cared about me, not really. I closed my eyes. Then we have nothing left to talk about. I hung up. A meeting I didn't expect. I thought that was the end. But life has a way of throwing unexpected curveballs. 2 days later, I got a message from an unknown number. Unknown, I need to meet with you. It's important. Please. At first, I thought it was Olivia. But then I saw the name at the bottom. Emily Carter. David's wife. I hesitated. What the hell did she want from me? But curiosity got the better of me. Me, where? She sent an address, a small coffee shop on the other side of town. Confronting the other victim. When I walked into the coffee shop, Emily was already there, sitting in the corner. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes, shoulders slumped. She was wearing a baggy sweater, her pregnant belly noticeable beneath the fabric. I sat across from her. She looked up, her eyes red. I don't even know why I asked you here, she admitted. I leaned back. Then why am I here? She took a deep breath. I guess. I wanted to see the man whose life my husband helped destroy. I let out a humorless chuckle. Guess that makes two of us. Silence stretched between us. Finally, she exhaled. He begged me not to leave. I raised an eyebrow. And? She scoffed. I left. Good. Her fingers tightened around her coffee cup. I just don't understand. We had a life. A baby on the way. Why wasn't that enough? I shook my head. If you find the answer, let me know. She let out a bitter laugh. For a long moment, we just sat there, two people whose lives had been shattered by the same betrayal. Then, quietly, she said, "Thank you." I frowned. For what? For telling me the truth. I nodded. You deserve to know. Her gaze softened. So did you. We sat there for another hour, talking. About our marriages. Our pain. The stupid, ridiculous things we had ignored because we trusted people who didn't deserve it. By the time we left, something inside me felt lighter. Not healed. But lighter. One last goodbye. That night, Olivia sent one final message. Olivia, I'm leaving town. I don't know where I'm going yet. But I wanted you to know that I loved you, even if I didn't show it. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I deleted it. Because in the end, it didn't matter. She was just another chapter in my life that had finally ended. The thing about endings is that they never feel like endings at first. You think there'll be some big, dramatic moment where everything clicks, where you finally feel free, where the weight on your chest disappears, where you wake up one morning and the pain is just gone. But that's not how it works. A week after Olivia left, I still found myself reaching for my phone to text her about something stupid, something she would have laughed at. A month later, I still turned over in bed expecting to find her there. And 6 months later, I still had moments where I caught myself staring at an old picture, wondering when exactly she stopped loving me. Grief is a strange thing. It doesn't hit all at once. It sneaks up on you when you least expect it, when you're grocery shopping and pass by her favorite snack, when you're folding laundry and find an old hoodie she left behind, when you're driving home from work and instinctively take the turn toward our house, even though it's my house now. But here's the thing about grief. It doesn't last forever. One day, you wake up, and it hurts a little less. And then a little less the next day. Until one day, you realize it doesn't hurt at all. Starting over. After Olivia left, I threw myself into rebuilding my life. I moved into a new apartment, nothing fancy, just mine. The old house felt too haunted by memories, so I sold it. She never came back for any of her things. I donated most of it, threw away the rest. It was easier that way. Work became my escape. I took on more projects, stayed late, kept my mind busy. Anything to keep from dwelling on the past. Some nights, I'd grab drinks with friends. They tried not to bring her up, but I could see it in their eyes, the silent "Are you okay?" They were too afraid to ask. I wasn't. Not yet. But I would be. An unexpected message. It happened on a random Thursday. I was at work, finishing up some reports, when my phone buzzed. A name I hadn't seen in 6 months flashed across the screen. Olivia. My stomach twisted, but I forced myself to breathe. I opened the message. Olivia, hey. That was it. I stared at the screen for a long time, debating whether to respond. Then, against my better judgment, I did. Me, what do you want? A few minutes passed. Then. Olivia, I just wanted to check in. I scoffed. Check in? After everything? Me, why? Another pause. Then. Olivia, I don't know. I guess I just miss you. I let out a slow breath, running a hand over my face. She had some nerve. 6 months. Not a word. Not a single apology. And now, out of nowhere, she wanted to check in? I typed a response. Then I deleted it. I put my phone down. I didn't owe her anything. Not closure. Not kindness. Not a response. So I left her message on read. And for the first time since she walked out of my life, I felt nothing at all. A new beginning. A year later, I met someone new. Her name was Emma. We met at a bookstore, of all places. I was grabbing a coffee, and she was struggling to reach a book on a high shelf. I grabbed it for her, made a dumb joke about how they should put the short person section lower, and she laughed. Not just polite laughter. Real laughter. We talked for almost an hour that day. And the next week, we went on our first date. It was different with her. Easy. No games, no secrets, no second guessing whether she actually wanted to be with me. She just did. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something I thought I had lost forever. Hope. One last goodbye. 2 years after Olivia left, I saw her again. It was at a restaurant downtown. Emma and I were having dinner, laughing about something stupid, when I felt a pair of eyes on me. I turned, and there she was. Olivia. She looked different. Thinner. Older. Not in a bad way, just tired. For a split second, our eyes met. She gave me a small, sad smile. I nodded once. Then I turned back to Emma. And I never looked back again. The final thought. Betrayal changes you. It breaks something inside you, something you don't think will ever heal. But it does heal. It takes time. It takes distance. It takes allowing yourself to feel the pain, to accept it, to let it pass through you instead of holding on to it. And when you finally come out the other side, you realize you were never really broken. You were just becoming someone stronger. Someone who knows their worth. Someone who refuses to settle for anything less than real, honest, loyal love. Olivia was my past. Emma is my future. And I have never looked back.